You're tuned in to the only all-sports talk network in the Middle East, IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Check out the Israel Sports Radio store by clicking on the store tab on IsraelSportsRadio.com. Great items such as t-shirts, hats, books, and much, much more. Price does include shipping, and we do ship throughout the entire world. All major credit cards are accepted to make your shopping experience easy and convenient. So once again, click on the store tab on www.IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Live from Studio C at the Cherry Hill campus for the Connecticut School of Broadcasting, it's Sports Talk with the Sports Rabbi.
Down goes Frazier. He scores! High fly ball into right field. She is gone! Whoa, Betty, bam, bam, whoa.
Welcome to another edition of Sports Talk Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. As always, if you want to chime in, 856-330-4749, or you can send me a message on Facebook, facebook.com, and search for Sports Talk with the... Or you can also send me a message on Twitter at the Yossi G, THEYOSSI, and the letter G. The first thing that came really up to me was over the last week in the sports world. And there's a lot of things to talk about, a lot of things to get into. The NFL draft, the NHL playoffs, the NBA playoffs. What stood out was this whole Donald Sterling story that will not die. Commissioner Adam Silver, NBA Commissioner Adam Silver, came out a couple weeks ago very strongly against the words on the tape recording that was gotten by TMZ Sports that had Donald Sterling saying those remarks that he made. And Adam Silver came out really strong and banned him for life. And we also know at this present moment that the NBA owners are going to be are trying their hardest, are trying their darnest to find a provision for which they can force Sterling to sell the Los Angeles Clippers. With that all said, former Miami Heat player Roger Mason Jr., who's the vice president of the Players Union, he came out yesterday saying that he and LeBron had a talk a couple days ago. And LeBron said that, at least according to Mason, that he would boycott, that he would walk out, he would not play the entire NBA season should Donald Sterling or his wife or anybody in the Sterling family still maintain some sort of ownership rights with the Los Angeles Clippers. Should Donald Sterling or any member of the Sterling family still be or looked upon as the owner of the Clippers, he would not play. Now, this is really the first player, I would say, since Michael Jordan, who left after that three-peat. In his prime, he left the NBA, retired the first time, went to play baseball. The first player that has that real ability to grab a hold of your attention, the first player that is known worldwide in his prime to threaten to do something like this, to threaten to walk out, not play, he will retire in his prime. Now, if LeBron James goes ahead and does this, goes forward with it, kudos to him. I mean, the guy's made millions of dollars, does not need to make another buck in his life, and he's set him, his kids, grandkids for a couple generations. They don't need to work. He doesn't need another dollar, doesn't need another dime, not another red penny. But what was insinuated by the comments that were made by Roger Mason Jr. was that LeBron would be at the head of it, and the rest of the NBA would be behind him. They would, many, many players would sit out. So, firstly, I throw the question out to you, the listener, and of course you could call me or text me, tweet at me with your opinion on the matter. Would, firstly, all or most of a significant number of NBA players, those who are stars, those who are not yet stars, those who will never will be stars, will they sit out, will they boycott if Donald Sterling is still the owner of the Los Angeles Clippers next year? Or even if it's just LeBron, Will he actually go forward with what he's threatening now? Will he actually put his money where his mouth is, so to speak? And should Adam Silver not be able to force Donald Sterling as the owner of the Los Angeles Clippers next year, will LeBron actually sit out? 856-330-4749 or tweet at me at the Yossi G or send me a message on Facebook, facebook.com, and search for Sports Talk, the Sports Rabbi. I don't think that the players are going to go along with this because, yeah, you have guys like LeBron. You may have somebody like Blake Griffin, like Chris Paul. They've made millions of dollars. They don't need to make more money for them to be set in their lifestyle for the rest of their lives. But you have guys who are never going to be a star, making the league minimum. And granted, that's a really nice salary when you compare it to the rest of the United States. But to think that they would go ahead and go through with a boycott, not play, forfeit money which can be put to good use for their future of their family, I find that hard to believe that those types of players would actually sit out. I find it difficult to imagine, to quantify, to fathom how or why these players would say, yeah, let's all do it. Let's go ahead. We're going to sit out. We're not going to play. We're going to forfeit all our money so we can make a stand. As much as I'd like to believe that it would be possible, I don't see this being the 1960s, the 1950s all over again. This is not the same thing. This is one man. Granted, the comments that he made were completely inflammatory, 100% discriminatory. Nonetheless, I find it difficult to believe that NBA players of the mainstream would actually sit out. And even LeBron James himself, I'm calling him out on his bluff right now that if Donald Sterling is still the majority owner of the Los Angeles Clippers, forget Shelly, his wife, forget the kids right now. If Donald Sterling himself is still the owner of the LA Clippers, LeBron James is playing next year. He's not going to back his words up because at the end of the day, the case that the NBA, the case that Adam Silver has legally against Donald Sterling to force him to sell the team, at this point in time, it's murky at best. The provisions that are in the NBA bylaws, that are in the NBA constitutions to allow for 3/4 of a majority vote to oust an NBA owner or to close a team, there has to be certain conditions, certain reasons, and those reasons are murky at best right now because it's all about how it affects the team and how it affects the rest of the league. And there can be arguments made, and I'm not a lawyer, I'm not paid to do this, but there can be arguments made that it really doesn't fall into the category, that Donald Sterling's remarks do not fall into that category, and he should not be forced legally to sell his team. When you branch that out to his wife, she wants 50% of the team. Right now, they're not divorced. They're only separated. So if Mrs. Silver, if Shelly Silver, Mrs. Sterling, if Shelly Sterling decides that she wants to divorce her husband, guess what? She gets 50% of the team. According to LeBron James' statement that Roger Mason Jr. said, he made it sound as if it was anyone with the last name Sterling, anyone associated with the family or family members. That being said, that includes the wife. Well, if she owns it, what does she have to do with her husband, her estranged husband? He left her for a mistress, somebody who's 50 years his junior. What does she have to do with the comments that he made? It's not her fault. And the kids, there's a report that came out recently that Donald Sterling is battling a advanced form of cancer. So it's not out of the realm to think the possibility that before the start of next season, which was the date that LeBron James kind of made as for his deadline, that Donald Sterling may not be with us on this physical world anymore. And should that happen, guess who inherits the team? I wonder. It's his kids that inherit the team. And guess what happens? What kind of claim does the NBA have to force the kids, Donald Sterling's kids, to sell the team, to sell the Los Angeles Clippers? They have none. Just because these children are the offspring of the guy who made those comments? Since when do we hold the child hostage, so to speak, for something that the father said or did? This is the United States of America. What kind of claim would the NBA have? Zero. LeBron James is going to end up eating his words that he's going to end up eating his words that he threatens to walk out next season. Because at the end of the day, somebody with the last name Sterling, by the start of the 2014-2015 NBA season, will still own the Los Angeles Clippers. You mark my words, that's what's going to happen, and LeBron James will eat crow. Let's get into a little playoff talk. Well, we're on the NBA topic, so we'll start off with the NBA playoffs, and I don't know how many of you caught the end of the Oklahoma City Los Angeles Clippers game a couple nights ago, Game 5, where it ended with a lot of controversy really surrounding that game because you had the Thunder were down and then they got the ball back and it was a foul, but then it went out of bounds and the referees missed a call and then he called a phantom foul, and it was very interesting all around to see just how the NBA really has a lot of improvements to make with their replay systems, with the fouls, with the referees and all of that. But the officiating aside, and this seems to be a point where many people overlook, and it should not be overlooked, is that the LA Clippers had a 12-point lead in the fourth quarter. How the heck do you let a 12-point lead evaporate with a flick of a wrist? You can blame those fouls, you could blame those non-foul calls, you could blame the phantom fouls, you could blame the referees officiating all you want. But the fact of the matter remains that even through everything, even after Russell Westbrook hits those 3 free throws on some people like to call it the phantom foul that never really happened, the Clippers still got the ball back with 6.5 seconds left. They were only down by 1 point. 6.5 seconds left. They get it into Chris Paul. Chris Paul drives to the basket, and guess what? He loses the basketball. Game over. The LA Clippers, yes, they gave up 12 points, which should have never happened. Yes, there were ridiculous calls by the officiating and non-calls by the officiating, which also has to be fixed. But at the end of the day, the LA Clippers only have themselves to blame. Their stars did not come through. Their stars were small that night. I don't want to hear any more about this officiating nonsense. Right now, the ones you have to blame is the LA Clippers themselves. Period. End of conversation. I come back, we'll talk a little bit NHL playoffs, and then we'll get the thoughts and opinions on the NFL draft, and we'll see how our local teams did and what grades I have for them. You're listening to the Sports Talk.
Connecticut School of Broadcasting founder Dick Robinson.
You know, the media business has changed a lot since we opened our doors in 1964. Now media content is everywhere, on air, online, on the go. More than ever, companies are looking for people to help drive this new media.
At Connecticut School of Broadcasting, you'll get hands-on training on the latest software and equipment in a matter of months, not years. Connecticut School of Broadcasting has placed thousands of grads in broadcast media careers.
It's all about versatility. You see, at a radio station, if you also know how to shoot, edit, and post videos, you become a pretty hot commodity. That's the training you get at Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
Connecticut School of Broadcasting, with locations up and down the East Coast, from Massachusetts to Miami. Call 1-800-TV-RADIO or log on to GoCSB.com. Connecticut School of Broadcasting, the nation's oldest and largest group of broadcast media schools, redefining training in radio, TV, and new media. Get trained. Get connected. 1-800-TV-RADIO.
Your computer is blowing up to the sounds of All Noise Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
The NHL playoffs, I don't know if you've been following, but they've been one of the best that I've seen in recent years, and it almost seems like I say this every single year. It just gets better and better and better. It's fabulous to watch how players push their game up. Players play on levels which they should not be playing. They have no right to play on those levels. The game is a little bit faster. The hits are a little harder. The checking is finished, or the checks are finished. And the goals, even though they're not necessarily always that high, the games, but they're still fun and exciting and entertaining. And they're amazing, actually, just to watch. And thus far, I mean, you look at the first round, you had a couple of series that went to Game 7. You had the LA Kings coming back from the San Jose Sharks down 3-0 to force Game 7 and win. Now in another Game 7, just like the New York, they're going to be playing tonight, but just like the New York Rangers, or rather tomorrow night, just like the New York Rangers, though, also in a couple Game 7s, they beat the Penguins. First they beat the Flyers, then they go and have to beat the other Keystone couple, the Pittsburgh Penguins, Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, and all of them. Talk about the Rangers for just a moment. When you look at what happened, and I know I've been getting some tweets, and one coming from Marcy in Manhattan. She says, we're going to have to kill someone else's mother on the Rangers in order for us to get to the finals. And yeah, I wouldn't go that far as to start insinuating death to someone's mom, but it was an unfortunate situation that happened with Marty San Luis's mother, who died right before Mother's Day, very unexpectedly, and how he played, the team was right behind him. Everybody seemed to dig a little deeper, and that happened right before Game 5, and we all know what happened with the Rangers. Game 5, they won 5-1. Game 6, they won 3-1, and Game 7, they won 2-1. So I understand where you're coming from, Marcy, but let's just hope it doesn't have to get to that point where someone else's mother has to die in order for the Rangers to advance to the finals and win the cup. What would be really, really nice and amazing is that if the Rangers will be able to continue playing with that emotion that they did the last portion of the series against the Penguins and ensure a trip first to the Stanley Cup Finals and then, of course, a trip down the ice with the Stanley Cup held in their collective hands. What would be really cool to see is the team actually scoring more. Is to see the team not having to rely on Henrik Lundqvist all the time. Is to see the team playing a better power play. It's to see the team playing like those last 3 games against the Penguins, but every single night. They play those last 3 games against the Penguins unlike they had the rest of their series, and also against the Flyers. Really, the Flyers did not pose that much of a challenge, and it was a little surprising, actually, that they went to 7 games. Truth be told, I thought the Rangers should have finished them in 5 or maybe 6, but certainly not 7. What the Rangers have to do is somehow figure out, with Alain Vigneault as at the helm, and it seemed like he has learned a little bit from his mistakes that he made in Vancouver as the coach of the Canucks. When you look at Game 7, look at some of the film, some of the highlights of how he ran the bench. It started off usually in the third period. Shifts are between 40-45 seconds long. He had the Rangers playing 15 to 25 second shifts in the third period. So that way the last 5-6 minutes of the game, they would not be gassed. They would not be winded. They would still have legs underneath them on which to skate, and they would be able to propel themselves forward to victory. Unlike that's not how he did it in Vancouver. He seemed to learn the lesson with the Canucks, and he brought that lesson learned with him to New York, especially for this Game 7 against the Penguins. But even larger, a bigger story than the Rangers advancing is the Penguins' ineptitude since they've won the Cup in 2009 to make it past an opponent that is seated lower than them. Our columnist, NHL insider, Islanders columnist for WFAN, and our resident NHL insider, Daniel Friedman, penned a piece a couple days ago on that aspect itself, with Sidney Crosby, the captain of the Penguins, not having the leadership role or not expressing those leadership values that he had when the team won the Cup a couple of years ago, when the team won the Cup in 2009. Since then, 5 straight playoff years, the Penguins have been knocked out of the playoffs by a lower-seeded team, mainly because that other team got under Sidney Crosby's skin and caused him to forget about the game and caused him to be frustrated, have those frustrations spill over onto the ice, take stupid penalties, allow the opponents to get into his head so he cannot score, cannot pass, things like that. Look as it happened against the Boston Bruins. Look as it happened against the New York Rangers in this series. He had a bunch of points. Yes, he only had 1 goal, but he had 6 points through the first couple of games, and then after Game 5, it's like he just disappeared. Nothing. Didn't finish checks, had Rangers getting in his face, getting under his skin, so much so where a lot of people still feel that he should have been fined and penalized for a couple things that he did in Game 6, where he speared Dominic Moore and where he slew-foot Ryan McDonough. But being penalized or not, that's not, of course, our responsibility. That's the NHL's responsibility. And they'll have to figure out how to deal with him down the road, because it doesn't seem like he's grown up that much. He is still Sid the Kid. He's the face of the NHL, but he doesn't seem like he's able to control his team. Doesn't seem like the Pittsburgh Penguins, forever have seemed to be the squad that runs through Crosby. As Sidney goes, so does the Penguins. Regular season, beautiful. Great regular season, finish one of the betters in the league, and then comes the playoffs. It's like a whole different animal. Players' games are stepped up, but Sidney Crosby's game, somehow Sidney Crosby does not know at this point in time, has not been able to recapture that ability to step up his own game during the playoffs. He is arguably the best player in this galaxy, but he is not expressing the leadership, not displaying those type of skills, those leadership skills that he has in the past these last couple years, these last couple playoff seasons. He's allowed for the opponents to get into his head. He's allowed for the opposition to be able to alter his game, and he has not played up to the part of a captain of a franchise in the National Hockey League, especially one who is as talented or has a captain as talented as Sidney is. It'll be interesting to see how the Penguins manage themselves going forward with the coach. If they have a new coach, they keep the coach. GM, what happens with the front office, because a lot of people are saying that perhaps Dan Bylsma should have been gone before the beginning of this season. And I think that when you see the Pittsburgh Penguins in 2014, there will be a couple new players. There will certainly be a new coach. There may even be a new general manager. Moving on now for the Philadelphia Flyers, the one thing that came out for me from this NHL playoffs, even though they only made one round, they didn't make it out of the round against the Rangers. Even so, 7 games, play the Rangers. They have a solid team. They're going to need to get at least one other guy who can score the puck, because you have guys like Scott Hartnell. You have somebody like Wayne Simmons. They are very similar players. Outside of Claude Giroux, there really is no other player who is a go-to scorer on the team. A lot of tough, blue-collar, hard-working types of guys, true. But you can't have the entire team outside your captain playing like that. You need some scrappy guys, 100%. But you also need guys who are talented enough that they can score on their own. They can go coast to coast by themselves. Claude Giroux is one such guy, but you need at least one more, because not always will Claude Giroux be on his game. People are, matchups. You're tired. There's going to be games here and there where you're not going to be able to play as well as you have liked to play. And unfortunately, if that happens in the playoffs, there goes a game. And if that's Game 7, well, there goes the series. You need at least one other player who's able to take the pressure off that superstar to be able to score for himself, create scoring opportunities for himself, and help his team. But what I did get from this series between the Flyers and the Rangers is that I think for the first time since probably Bernie Perron, or maybe Ron Hextall, first time in probably about 25 years, the Flyers don't have an issue with the goaltending. It is hands down Steve Mason's job. He played really well when he came in during the series against the Rangers. He was out the first 2.5 games because of an upper body injury, which a lot of people think is a concussion. Ray Emery, serviceable backup, but not the starting goalie. Steve Mason, young, can move. He's got good lateral movement. He can make those plays. He can steal games for you. He is the future between the pipes for the Philadelphia Flyers. I would be surprising to me if they bring in or if they sign another goalie in the offseason. It really would, because I think that Steve Mason has done a good enough job to earn himself that shot of proving why he should be the number one goalie for the Philadelphia Flyers. I think he's earned enough of that during this postseason, and he should be given the reins next year in the 2014-2015 NHL season for the Flyers to guide them between the pipes. You're listening to Sports Talk with the Sports Rabbi here on All Noise Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. When I come back, some football talk. Is Johnny Manziel? What about him? What do you think about him? How about Michael Sam? What's your take on that whole situation? Plus,
honey, again you're sitting here sulking?
I hate my job and I don't know what to do to change it.
Get off the couch and go check out the Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
The Connecticut School of Broadcasting? What's that? The Connecticut School of Broadcasting offers a career and lifestyle change through a broadcasting experience you won't ever forget. Log on to GoCSB.com to find out how a career in broadcasting is for you and not just the people you see on TV or hear on the radio. CSB focuses on many aspects of real-world broadcasting, and their knowledgeable instructors teach you through a hands-on approach so you're in the studio in no time. To find out how CSB can help you work in an industry you love, call 1-800-TV-RADIO or check us out online at GoCSB.com. Why work 50 weeks a year for a 2-week vacation when you can enjoy your job every day? Don't just sit there. Call 1-800-TV-RADIO or log on to GoCSB.com. Thanks, CSB.
The noise you can't ignore.
There's a lot of musings that have been made since the draft came and passed us by. And, well, one of the things that kind of struck me, I was listening this morning to ESPN's Mike and Mike, and they were talking about Johnny Manziel, and I was thinking about it. I was thinking about Johnny Manziel and what he means to the NFL. And when you consider what has occurred over the last couple of months, maybe even a couple of years, even since he won the Heisman Trophy, Johnny Manziel is probably the most polarizing player in the NFL since Tim Tebow left college, since Tim Tebow left Florida. When you look at what Johnny Manziel represents, I think he is the atheist's version in terms of Tim Tebow, the atheist's version of a guy who, obviously we don't know what he believes, but he's a kid from Texas. He's played, he got snubbed, he got traded for, he got traded down for or because of, and everything that happened in the draft in terms of Johnny Manziel. Like Tim Tebow, he also was taken in the first round, but unlike Tim Tebow, I think he's going to have a longer career. Now, Johnny Manziel reminds me, he's like football's version of Justin Bieber. And you consider he's young, he's immature, he just does things because he wants attention. That's how I look at Johnny Manziel. He's the football version of Justin Bieber. And when you consider what he represents, he is that dichotomy of, will he be amazing? Will he be nothing in the NFL? And really, when it comes to a player like him and what he represented in college football, what he brings to the table for the NFL, it really can go either way because everything pointing in a positive direction for Johnny Manziel could potentially be something negative in the NFL for him. And when you look at a guy like Johnny Manziel, I ask the question, and I want to know to you, the listener, what do you think of Manziel? Why is he such a polarizing player? What makes him command the attention that he does? Why does everybody want to know what Johnny's thinking, what Johnny's doing, what Johnny's up to? 856-330-4749 or send me a message on Twitter at the Yossi G or a Facebook message and search for Sports Talk with the Sports Rabbi on Facebook. The other thing that I think really stuck out to me at the NFL draft was this whole Michael Sam being drafted and everything surrounded his actual selection. Major Network had a camera placed in his house to see what would happen, what his reaction would be, should he be selected in the draft. And sure enough, the end of the 7th round, the end of Saturday afternoon, Shabbos afternoon, what happens? He gets drafted by the St. Louis Rams, who, mind you, I think had a phenomenal draft. I think they had one of the best drafts of any team. I mean, just take for a moment what you have in terms of the Rams with their defense. You have Chris Long, you have another Pro Bowl defensive end in Robert Quinn, defensive tackle Michael Brockers, and now you drafted Aaron McDonald. He's the 4th defensive lineman they've selected in the first round since 2008. I mean, what Les Snead has done, and he's given Jeff Fisher a really good defense in an extremely competitive NFC West. Seattle won the Super Bowl. San Francisco's won the went to the NFC title game in 2 straight years, and Arizona won 10 games. So what's left for the Rams is they have to be built in a fashion where they can really do damage in their division. I think that what the GM, that what Les Snead has done for the Rams, he's put them in a really good position for Jeff Fisher to coach them to perhaps a playoff spot. Well, with that aside, what Les Snead did, he brought in now Michael Sam, and what that, of course, brings is that extra scrutiny, perhaps a little bit of criticism. What is Sam going to be bringing to the table? And when you look at all of those things, and when you see what the outside of his, the outside, so to speak, of what his game has, right? You have in Michael Sam, you have a guy who can play. He can play defense. He's solid. He's solid linebacker. But of course, the questions really weren't about his playing abilities per se, but it was more what he'll bring to the table in terms of the locker room, how everybody will look at him in the locker room. And that's why I think he was probably a 5th rounder had he not come out and said openly that he's gay. I think it would have been a 4th or 5th rounder, but I think he dropped to the 7th round because of that stigma that is still in the NFL with players. And as being the first openly gay athlete to play in the NFL, I think that has a lot to do, or had a lot to do, with the fact that he dropped that far in the NFL draft to the 7th round. But nonetheless, he was selected. And with that said, there's going to be the scrutiny. There's going to be the what's going to happen in the locker room. There's going to be how his teammates will react and what they're going to think and all that sort of stuff. And, of course, it's going to be that first time that he steps onto the football field in a hostile environment. He's not playing in St. Louis. What's going to be the reaction from the crowd, and how is he going to handle it? I think he'll be fine. The bigger question, of course, came around on that draft when he was selected. I believe it was ESPN who had those TVs set up in his that feed set up in his house. And you see Michael Sam, once he's selected by the Rams in the 7th round, he kisses his boyfriend on national TV. So, of course, there's the question of, parents fathers who are watching the draft with their sons and saying, "Oh my gosh, this is crazy. He expressed his homosexuality in front of on national TV, in front of my kids, and I want to teach my kids about the birds and the bees when I want to teach them, and about same-sex marriage when I want to teach them. Not, I don't have to be forced to teach them." Here's a couple things to consider. First of all, what are you, a father, doing with your son sitting inside? It was a beautiful day. What are you sitting inside on a Shabbos Saturday afternoon watching the NFL draft? It's the 7th round, for crying out loud. It's not the first round or the second or the third round. It's the 7th round. I mean, these are guys who are probably not even going to make the roster, most of them. Maybe they'll make a practice squad this season. Really? Do you care? Do you care who's taken in the 7th round? Give me a freaking break. 7th round. You have something better to do? Shouldn't your kid be outside playing? Shouldn't you maybe go outside, throw a football around, have a catch, throw a baseball around? What are you doing inside watching the draft? The 7th round of the draft. I understand the first couple rounds, but come on. Get a life. Do something with yourself. Show your kid that you're better than that. Get off the couch, get off your lazy toches, and go out there and play with your son. Don't let the TV entertain both of you. He'll turn into you. Do you really want that? Well, nonetheless, I don't think that there was such a big deal that Michael Sam kissed his boyfriend on TV. Oh my gosh, look at what happens in all the other rounds. You have guys kissing their girlfriends. Well, he's gay. He doesn't want to kiss a girl. He wants to kiss a guy. I don't think there's a problem. I'm the sports rabbi, and it's in Deuteronomy, there's a whole thing there where in the Old Testament where one of the prohibitions is against immoral acts, and one of those things is homosexual acts. Kissing a guy is not a homosexual act, in my opinion. It might be something that's not condoned. It's looked down upon, perhaps, yeah. But it's not a homosexual. The homosexual act that is alluded to in the Bible, in the Old Testament, is not kissing a guy. It's not a guy kissing a guy. It's something that goes on in the bedroom. And unless that's what's going to happen on national TV, then I have a problem with that, certainly. But Michael Sam, you have one player, let's say, take any other player, someone's selected in the first round, let's say Brandon Cooks, C.J. Mosley. I mean, there are other players that you can think about, right? They get selected, they hug their mothers, they kiss their girlfriends, their wives, whomever it may be. Michael Sam kisses his boyfriend. Same. I don't see it being such an issue. And people talk about, it's against the Bible. Really, now you're becoming all religious? I mean, okay, you might, everyone has a second chance. And this past week, it was the date called Pesach Sheni, the second Passover, is for when the Jews left Egypt and they had the Paschal sacrifice, and not everybody was ritually pure. So some of those came to Moses and said, "Hey, look, we can't partake in it. We want to be able to partake in it." So he spoke to God, and God said, "Let them do it in a month from now when they'll be able to purify themselves." So that was a couple days ago. Okay, so as the saying goes, no one's left behind, all right? So you may not be that religious of a person, but suddenly when Michael Sam, this whole situation pops up and you say, "Oh my gosh, the Bible, you can't do that, national TV, oh my gosh, what's going to happen?" So he kissed his boyfriend. So he got drafted. Last I checked, we're still here. The world is still functioning. Hell hath not frozen over. There is no big tidal wave that is coming to wipe us out or has wiped us out. We're still here. Michael Sam got drafted. He kissed his boyfriend. We move on with life. That's what we do. We move on with life, and we tackle the bigger issues. This is not such a big deal. He kissed his boyfriend? Okay. Fine. I get it. He wanted to express his love and affection to his boyfriend because he got selected in the NFL draft, so he kissed his boyfriend. Joy to the world. If you don't flaunt in front of my face, I have no problem with it. I don't consider this to be flaunting.
It's been 48 years Connecticut School of Broadcasting has helped place thousands of people, just like you, in exciting careers in radio, television, and the new media. At Connecticut School of Broadcasting, our hands-on approach is different. It's designed to have you spend less time in the classroom and more time in the studios. From the first day, you'll work with state-of-the-art equipment. Learn by doing from our team of industry professionals who come from their studios to ours. The best part about it, you'll learn it all in a matter of months, not years. Connecticut School of Broadcasting has a network of 12 campuses from Massachusetts to Miami. Remember, it's never too late to love what you do. So do what I did. Call 1-800-TV-RADIO. Step into the fast-paced world of the broadcast media. Day and evening classes begin soon. Connecticut School of Broadcasting. Get trained and get connected now. Call 1-800-TV-RADIO or log on to GoCSB.com. Your computer is blowing up to the sounds of All Noise Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
Sports talk. And like I promised, let's go through some of the draft grades. First, let's cover some of the teams that actually had good drafts. I mentioned St. Louis before the break. Cleveland also had a pretty good draft, with Justin Gilbert, and he's going to team up with Joe Hayden. They also got Johnny Manziel. Obviously, Josh Gordon's going to hurt. I don't think Johnny Manziel's going to start this season because if you look at what happened, for example, with Brandon Whedon and how he got benched after 2 games because those 2 games Josh Brown was out because of a suspension, and then Brandon Whedon never really got around to get going. So I think that Johnny Manziel, if Josh Gordon is suspended for the whole season, he will sit out this year, and you will not see one snap of Johnny Manziel just yet. Brandon Cooks, a fabulous move by the New Orleans Saints to go up, get their wide receiver that they wanted. He's exactly the kind of receiver who should flourish in a wide-open offense like they have in New Orleans. He's got speed, explosiveness, he's a really good route runner, and he's got the ability to do the yak, the yards after the catch. That's the big thing in the NFL. Even in the NFL now, where you have a lot of wide receivers, they usually struggle to find their way as a rookie. Just look at Stephen Hill, for example, with the New York Jets. He's still trying to find his way. The chances of Brandon Cooks helping the Saints immediately seem really, really strong, especially because of the quarterback that they have in Drew Brees. So I really look to see him team up with guys like Kenny Stills, Marquise Colson. Don't be surprised if Cooks makes a very smooth transition from college to the pros. C.J. Mosley, the inside linebacker in Baltimore, he's not the second coming of Ray Lewis. Let's get this straight. But he is a very, very good linebacker. He's got really good instincts. His versatility makes him the prototypical 3-down type linebacker that they love in Baltimore. And he's going to quickly fit in, I think, with a Baltimore defense that really needs somebody like him to play in there to step it up. Philly, I think the Eagles, and we'll get to the Eagles shortly with their complete draft grades, but I think the Eagles did a really, really, they did a really good job by helping themselves out after their first pick that they had, their selection there with Marcus Smith, who no one knew who the heck, still people don't know who the heck this guy is from Syracuse. But with Jordan Matthews, they got probably one of the biggest steals of the draft when they landed Matthews in the second round. From Vanderbilt, this guy's got first-round talent. He's got the smarts, and he's going to be able to help the Chip Kelly offense, the fast-paced, up-tempo offense that Chip Kelly likes to use. He's going to be able to help them immediately. The Eagles got rid of Deshaun Jackson the offseason. He's in Washington. They're also going to be missing Jason Avant, who's now in Carolina. And, yeah, they have Jeremy Maclin, but he's coming back from a torn ACL. Maclin, Riley Cooper, Jordan Matthews, it's really going to push Matthews into the fact that he is going to have to play in the first year in this system. Now, imagine that Matthews, who's got more talent and upside than both Jeremy Maclin and Riley Cooper. Well, imagine what he can do in his first season with the Eagles. He's going to make people forget Deshaun Jackson, I think, down the road, not in his first year. But even so, he's going to be able to help the Eagles' cause immediately in their wide receiving core with their wide receiving game. Some of the worst picks, I think, was Kansas City when they selected D Ford, because it's not really with Ford as a player, because he's a really good pass rusher and who probably will one day live up to the fact that the Chiefs picked him in the first round. But it has everything to do with the fact that the Chiefs needed to do things. They needed to make selections for players who fit in their system. And I just don't see how D Ford is going to be that type of guy. Kelvin Benjamin, I know a lot of people were really, really up on this guy, the wide receiver out of Florida State. Benjamin would not, usually he shouldn't be on this list because, I mean, the only way, if you have a team that needs a lot of help with the wide receivers, especially Carolina after it lost Steve Smith, then you would think normally that this would be a good selection. But Steve Smith, notwithstanding, even though he's not on the team anymore, and they lost their top 4 receivers from last season, it's still impossible to imagine that Kelvin Benjamin is going to be tearing up the NFL in his rookie season. He's got really good size at 6'5", 240. He's got impressive athleticism, but he also possesses very average speed and will probably have a very difficult time adjusting to press coverage from the NFL cornerbacks that he will face after he bullied a lot of defenders in college. Carolina has one veteran receiver in Jason Avant that they got from Philadelphia Eagles in order to mentor Benjamin, because that's going to be necessary. There's no other proven targets on the roster. Benjamin is going to be starting with the Carolina Panthers, but he will learn very quickly how difficult it is to succeed in the NFL, especially when you're learning on the fly. And it'll be interesting to see what happens. But I certainly have high hopes for some of the players that were selected, especially the New York Giants. I give them a B- because they went out and got Odell Beckham Jr. They have a lot of areas that they need to, and they hit on most of them during the draft. Odell Beckham Jr., he's the fastest rising wide receiver on every single team's board, draft board. And when he slipped to 12, the Giants were not going to go in any other direction. They passed on Zach Martin, the guy who probably would have been able to help their offensive line at tackle or at guard. Weston Richburg and Jay Bromley, they're classic Tom Coughlin types of guys. They're tough, they're gritty, and they're smart offensive and defensive linemen, respectively. And, yeah, you can ask why they waited to the 5th round to draft a safety. There were really a few special ones, and they didn't get to them in rounds 1 through 4. I'm not so high on Andre Williams as the running back, but hey, look, I think overall they had a really good draft. There's some areas to improve. They certainly hit those areas. I think they will improve next season, and I really look to see Odell Beckham Jr. have an impact that a lot of the pundits out there believe that he will have. The Jets, I think, also get a B- because they took Calvin Pryor with the 18th pick. Safety, they really, really, really needed somebody like him. And then they go out and got Jay Samaro, a tight end who probably will go and play slot. They got him in the 2nd round. Wide receivers were not, like, the actual position of wide receiver wasn't addressed until later on in the draft. And I'm not so high on Jalen Sanders, Shaq Evans, or Quincy Enunwa. But the Jets have a extremely large and glaring hole at wide receiver on their roster, and they didn't really fill it. So that's where I think the B- comes in. I mean, Rex Ryan did get a steal in defensive end out of Utah, Trevor Riley, who slipped to the 7th round, and he can play right away. He's got a real mean streak to him. Dexter McDougal, I don't know. I think it was a little bit of a reach in the 3rd round. Taj Boyd is a good college quarterback. Scouts just didn't think that he would translate very well to the NFL. He's going to battle with Matt Sims, probably kick Matt Sims off the team because he will take his job for the clipboard holding 3rd quarterback position with the Jets. Even though the Jets brass and the players love what Matt Sims brings to the table, I think Taj Boyd is just a little bit more talented than Phil Simms' son. In terms of the receivers, at the end of the day, they had to get somebody. They waited a little long, I think, to address the wide receiver position, but at least they got Jay Samaro, and they picked up Calvin Pryor. I mean, look, you can't go wrong with Calvin Pryor, and he slipped to them. Bring him, take him. He's really, you needed him at corner, and they needed to address that position. So I think that was a good selection by them. But the rest, I'm still up in arms. I'm not 100% sure what to think about it, so I'll just leave it at that. I won't think about it too much. Now, with regards to the Philadelphia Eagles, I think they also had a pretty solid draft. A- I'm giving them. Look, Chip Kelly and Howie Roseman's Eagles, look, they were a really pleasant surprise last year. They went 10-6, won the division, hosted a playoff game at home. But their second draft together, it was filled with also a lot of surprises as well. Marcus Smith, who? Not a household name when they took him in the first round. You had the opportunity to trade up to get HaHa Clinton-Dix, Hashawn Clinton-Dix. One pick before you, the Green Bay Packers took him at 21. I think you could have traded up to 20 from and got that pick instead of the New Orleans Saints trading up and getting Brandon Cooks. But whatever, it's not I'm not in there. Also, the pass rushing group being very thin this year, the Eagles felt that they had to get somebody who had as productive of a season as Marcus Smith had last year. In the later rounds, they took guys they obviously liked. Josh Huff, he was a recruit from Chip Kelly out of Oregon. Jalen Watkins, he was from Howie Roseman's alma mater, the University of Florida. And Taylor Hart, he's a defensive tackle who is a stud for Kelly in Eugene, Oregon with the Ducks. So Kelly took a couple guys that he knew. Took a couple guys that he was very comfortable with, and I think that through those, they will go forward with the right foot. Now, I would normally not give him the A-. I would give him a little bit of a lower grade because they didn't address a lot of their issues until later on in the later rounds, and they took a guy like Marcus Smith with the first pick. But the Eagles took Jordan Matthews. He's the SEC record holder wide receiver out of Vanderbilt. They stole him in the second round. Like Keenan Allen a year ago, Matthews slipped to the second round because he isn't a workout warrior. But he's reliable. He did it at the highest level in college, and he will be a pleasant addition to the locker room. He wants to work. He'll get that chance. And I think a guy like Matthews will bring a lot to the table, like I mentioned. He will be able to pair alongside with Jeremy Maclin and also with a guy like Riley Cooper, and I think he'll help right away the Eagles get their wide receiving core right back on the track so the fans will be able to forget about Deshaun Jackson and the fact that the Eagles let him go for practically nothing. 856-330-4749. Tweet at me at the Yossi G, TheYossig. Send me a message on Facebook, facebook.com, and search for Sports Talk with the Sports Wrap. I'm getting a chime in here, a message in here on Twitter from Mendy613. He says, the New York Jets had a really good draft. I love what they did by getting, what's this? Oh, I guess this would have to be the cornerback, Calvin Pryor, CP. I guess that's what it is. Look, I totally agree. Calvin Pryor, what he did in college and what I think the Jets see in him as what he can do for the team. Look, there were some needs that needed to be addressed, I think, a little sooner than the cornerback position, but the cornerback position was one that had to be addressed at some point. So there's your top guy. If he's your top guy on your draft board once he came around, I'm perfectly fine going after him and getting him. You had wide receivers that needed to be addressed, that position. You had the safety position that needed to be addressed. You had a bunch of positions, cornerback as well, although not as high as a safety or the wide receivers. However, he's high on a lot of people's boards, so I'm not completely disappointed in that they went and got out a really good player. I'm looking at here. I got a text in here from Bob in Philly. He wants to know about Jonathan Papelbon and the soreness. What do you make of it? Should he have pitched or not? Now, for those who don't know, Jonathan Papelbon, he refused to come into a game on Sunday after Cole Hamels pitched his heart out. 133 pitches. The Phillies were up 4-1. Cole Hamels going for his 100th career victory. He was 0-4 up until that point, trying for it. Threw his 133 pitches. The Phillies are up 4-1 against the Mets. Their other two relievers that they had in there, for long relievers, they had pitched about 41 and 56 pitches respectively in the last 2 days, so they were unavailable. They bring in Bastardo. He can't close out the game. He can't close out anything. He gives up 3 runs. Now you're 4-4 going into extra innings. And you have a guy like Jonathan Papelbon who pitched 21 pitches over 2 days. I'm sore. I can't do it. Sorry. I'm going to watch my team lose a game. Oh, man. And then he says after the game, it's not about now. It's, you have to get ready. Somebody asked, one of the reporters asked him if this was a playoff game, would he have played? And he said, yeah, he would have played. He would have gotten a shot of cortisol, and he would have played. Well, guess what? If you lose enough games in May and June, there won't be any September or October baseball. And Jonathan Papelbon should be the guy to know because he played with a World Series winner with the Boston Red Sox. He knows what it's like to play in the dog days of summer. And you throw 21 pitches and you have general soreness. Be a man. You had a day off coming up. You had a day off on Thursday. You pitched Friday and Saturday. Sunday, you need a day off. Pitch 3 straight days. What are you, a sissy, a wuss? I think that you are. I think at this point it's clear that Jonathan Papelbon does not have what it takes to be that closer that Ryan Sandberg and the Phillies need and want and truly desire. Don't forget to have a wonderful sports weekend. NHL playoffs, NBA playoffs, even some baseball. You're listening to Sports Talk with the Sports Rabbi here on All Noise Radio.
All Noise Radio. Powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. All Noise Radio is an internet radio station that's fully produced by graduates of the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. From modern rock to old school hip hop, country to classical, news, talk, sports, and more. It's the noise you can't ignore. Log on to allnoiseradio.com. Fire up the station. Find out more about your favorite jocks. Get the latest CSB news and more. Plus, you can take All Noise Radio with you on the go for free. Just download the Live 365 app to your iPhone, iPod Touch, or BlackBerry and search All Noise Radio. Check out tomorrow's broadcasters today at allnoiseradio.com. Powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. All Noise Radio. The noise you can't ignore.